Have you ever heard of the 4% rule? That simple formula financial experts say can make your money last for the rest of your life in retirement? For decades, it's been the golden rule of retirement planning. But as we step into 2025, many people are beginning to ask, is it still safe? In this video, we'll unpack the truth behind the 4% rule, how it started, how it works, and whether it still makes sense for your retirement in today's world of inflation, high interest rates, and unpredictable markets. Stay with me until the end, because understanding this one concept could mean the difference between a retirement filled with financial peace or one filled with unnecessary stress. And before we begin, tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from? The US or the UK? I'd love to know where future retirees are tuning in from. The 4% rule became famous back in the 1990s when a financial planner named William Bengen wanted to answer a simple but powerful question. How much can someone safely withdraw from their retirement savings each year without running out of money? After studying historical stock and bond returns, he found that retirees who withdrew 4% of their initial savings each year, adjusted for inflation, could make their money last about 30 years. That discovery changed retirement planning forever. It gave people a clear formula: save enough to cover 25 times your annual expenses, and you should be financially safe. For example, if you plan to spend $50,000 a year, you'd need about $1.25 million saved. Sounds simple, right? But simple doesn't always mean perfect, especially in a world that looks nothing like it did in 1994. Back then, interest rates were higher, inflation was lower, and markets followed predictable cycles. But today, things are different. We've lived through pandemics, recessions, and unpredictable market crashes. Inflation has risen faster than it has in decades, and bond yields, once a reliable source of retirement income, have struggled to keep pace. That means a rule created 30 years ago might not work the same way now. So let's think about what the 4% rule actually means in today's environment. If you retire in 2025 and withdraw 4% from a $1 million portfolio, that's $40,000 a year. That might sound reasonable, but if inflation stays high or the market drops in the first few years of your retirement, that $40,000 could start draining your account faster than you expect. The 4% rule assumes average market returns, but reality doesn't always match averages. For example, if you start retirement during a downturn, your portfolio could take a hit early on, something financial experts call sequence of returns risk. This means if your investments drop 20% right after you start withdrawing, you're selling your assets at a loss, and your portfolio may never fully recover. So instead of lasting 30 years, it could last 20 or less. This is why so many retirement planners now suggest adjusting that rule. Some recommend 3.5% as a safer withdrawal rate. Others say it depends on your mix of assets, risk tolerance, and flexibility with spending. The truth is there's no one-size-fits-all number anymore, and that's okay. Retirement planning isn't about rules. It's about adapting to your own reality. Let's consider this in practical terms. Imagine a couple retiring in 2025 with $1 million in savings. Using the 4% rule, they'd plan to withdraw $40,000 per year, add Social Security or a state pension, maybe another $25,000 combined, and their total annual income would be around $65,000. For many people, that's comfortable. But what happens if inflation runs higher than expected? In just 5 years, that $65,000 might only buy what $55,000 used to. Suddenly, they'd either need to cut expenses or increase withdrawals. And increasing withdrawals means running the risk of depleting their savings early. This is why many financial advisors now prefer to use the 3.5% rule or even a dynamic withdrawal strategy, where you adjust how much you withdraw based on market performance each year. When your portfolio performs well, you take a little more. When it performs poorly, you tighten spending. It's not as clean as a fixed percentage, but it's far more realistic in today's world. Another major shift that affects the 4% rule is longevity. People are living longer than ever before. 30 years ago, retirement was expected to last maybe 2 decades. Today, it's common for someone to retire at 65 and live into their 90s. That's potentially 25 to 30 years, or even longer, of needing reliable income. And longer lifespans mean more exposure to inflation, healthcare costs, and market uncertainty. So, the same 4% that once worked for 30 years might not stretch far enough for 35 or 40 years. That doesn't mean the rule is useless. It just needs updating. Think of it as a starting point, not a finish line. Now let's look at where this rule still shines. For people with diversified investments, a mix of stocks, bonds, and some cash reserves, the 4% rule still provides a strong foundation. Stocks historically outpace inflation over time, while bonds provide stability during downturns. The key is balance. If your portfolio is too aggressive, you risk large losses early on. Too conservative, and inflation eats your returns. A balanced portfolio of around 60% stocks and 40% bonds is still one of the most reliable setups for long-term retirees. The difference now is that you should review it more often. Don't set it and forget it. Adjust based on how markets and your life evolve. You also have to consider where your income is coming from. The 4% rule assumes your withdrawals come from your investment portfolio. But many retirees today have multiple income sources: Social Security, pensions, rental income, dividends, or part-time work. These additional income streams can reduce the pressure on your portfolio and make the 4% rule safer for you. For example, if you only need $50,000 a year to live comfortably and your Social Security covers $20,000, then you're only withdrawing $30,000 from savings, just 3% on a $1 million portfolio. Suddenly, the rule becomes safer again. Here's another factor to think about: taxes. The original 4% rule didn't account for the tax impact of withdrawals. If most of your money is in tax-deferred accounts like a 401k or traditional IRA, you'll pay income tax on every dollar you withdraw. That means your 4% might not go as far as you think. In contrast, if you have money in a Roth IRA or ISA, for UK viewers, those withdrawals can be tax-free, giving you more flexibility. Planning how and when to withdraw from each account can make a huge difference in how long your money lasts. And then there's the psychological side of retirement. Many people spend decades saving, and when the time finally comes to use that money, they struggle to spend it. They fear running out. The 4% rule was meant to give people permission, to show that yes, you can spend your money without guilt. It creates structure and confidence. But as markets change, so must that confidence be rooted in reality, not outdated math. The goal isn't to stick to 4% because it's tradition. It's to use it as a flexible guideline while paying attention to what's happening in the world around you. So, what should you do if you're nearing retirement and unsure what percentage is right for you? Start by understanding your real expenses. Write down everything: housing, food, travel, healthcare, and even small pleasures like dining out or gifts for family. Then estimate how these might change over time. Maybe your mortgage will be paid off, but healthcare spending will rise. Next, build a cushion. Instead of basing your plan on the exact 4%, aim for a little margin. Say, plan for 3.5% withdrawals, but only spend 3%. That buffer gives you safety when markets dip. And finally, keep at least 2 years of living expenses in cash or very safe investments. That way, if markets crash, you won't have to sell investments at a loss to cover your bills. The bottom line? The 4% rule isn't dead, it's just evolving. Think of it as the starting framework for modern retirement, not the unbreakable law it once was. It gives you a goal: 25 times your annual spending. But how you reach it and how you adjust depends on your flexibility, risk comfort, and income mix. The people who retire successfully today aren't the ones with perfect formulas. They're the ones who monitor, adapt, and stay patient through market changes. So, is the 4% rule still safe for your retirement? The answer is it depends on how you use it. If you treat it as a rigid command, maybe not. But if you treat it as a guide, one you adjust as your life and the economy shift, it remains one of the most powerful tools you can use. Retirement planning isn't about predicting the future. It's about preparing for it. And as long as you keep learning, reviewing, and making smart choices, your money can absolutely last. If this video helped you understand the 4% rule better, hit the like button and share it with someone who's planning their retirement. Subscribe for more weekly videos on smart financial strategies. And don't forget to drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching this from and whether you think the 4% rule still works in 2025. Your opinion might inspire someone else who's on the same journey to financial freedom.